Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null. I'd like to welcome you to the Gary Null Show. This is the place to come to for feeling good, finding solutions, and today we're going to conclude with one of those called mastering your opposite. Let's watch. How many days are you going to lose before one day you wake up and say, my God, how many days of my life do I have to lose? When you're 20, you think you got a lifetime to lose. When you're 30, you're suddenly thinking, maybe I better get serious about this. By the time you're 35, you're already in a panic of searching for all the right meaning and communication and relationships. By the age of 40, you're now depressed because you haven't found what you were looking for, and what you think you have found suddenly becomes the artificial light that goes on that keeps you from looking for the real answer. So now you're making it look like you have a life when it's just an illusion. The relationship's an illusion, the career's an illusion, your attitude, your rituals each day, they're an illusion. But they're a well-groomed illusion. You believe them because you've lied to yourself and you've mastered lying to yourself. And others believe them because you lie to other people. But we can lie with a straight face, and we can lie with a smile, and we can lie with charm. Or we can lie with tears and then want people to give us compassion. But at the end of the day, when you ask, do you really feel complete and whole in this moment? Could you do nothing today and feel good about it? Most people are going to say no. Can you just disconnect from all your responsibilities for a week? And the answer is no. In fact, most people can't disconnect for an hour. Everywhere people are going, they have to do something. Just take a little extra work with them, an extra book to read, as if time itself was something to fear when you're alone with it. Just you and time, because then there's just you. And so we always keep ourselves busy. And the more busy you are, the more we're dancing away from ourselves. And at the end of the day, we're older, not wiser, and we're right back to where we started as far as any lesson. Next, where do we look for our truths? Almost always where we were taught the truths are. Unfortunately, the places we look are conditioned responses. We look at authority figures. So we trust authority as if it has answers we don't have. We look for leaders as if the leader is more enlightened than we are. We hope that people that we've trusted can be trusted with something as valuable and sacred as our lives. But do we want to know the truth that these are just people who are fallible, who've hidden their real agendas, hidden their real motives? And we've only accepted what we want to accept, and we don't want them to show us more. We're afraid that people show us too much. If people show us too much, we're going to be disillusioned. So at a certain point, we don't get too close to any problem. We get too close, it sears us right through the psyche. So we stay at a comfortable distance. As long as we stay at a comfortable distance, and we don't go in there and master the truth, then we'll never know it. What happens when you try to change your problems without first changing your perceptions? What happens? Nothing changes, does it? The problem can only change when the perception of what the problem is changes. When I was in college, we had a very rowdy group of guys. And every day in class, I refused to participate in all the gags and the clowning around. I was like a laser focusing on what the professors were saying. I asked questions, but at nighttime, I didn't want to study. I wanted to go out and play and have fun, shooting pool, whatever we were doing, basketball, dancing. And when it came test time, I had no problem with the tests, because where it was important, I paid attention. And I heard what they were telling us, and I knew that they wouldn't be teaching us stuff unless they thought it was important. Whether I ultimately used it or not was my choice, but at least I wanted to know what they felt was important, and I wanted to tell them back what was important. And then my friends weren't paying attention in class, and they didn't know the perspective. They didn't have a perspective. What would happen if, instead of making compromises against you, you made transformational processes for you? What if instead of looking at the problems that we're faced with in life, we immediately go to a place that's neutral? We detach as if there's two of us. The us that's conditioned that may make a right decision, and the us that's conditioned that may make the wrong decision. Confused, which decision should I make? Should I yes or no? What if we just got neutral? What if we detach from the outcome so we could look at it in an honest way of what it is? Then suddenly on that airplane where they say chicken Kiev, you go, no, I don't need it. My body can handle, I will not die of malnutrition over the next 2 hours till I get to the city. And instead of, yeah, what else you got? There's little crackers? Give me that too. You got butter? I'll take your butter. You know, coffee? Sure, give me coffee. Jack Daniels, throw it in too. Is it free? Throw it all in. And you watch people actually eating this stuff as if it's food. That's all compromising. Now, do you think that's the only place they're going to compromise? No. They have mastered compromise. So therefore, any time they're given an opportunity to compromise, they've already shown they're going to. Now, think of how that then ends up manifesting in losing our body. And then think of how we lose our mind when we lower our standards. Be around someone who's negative and gossips and watch how long it takes you to start being negative and gossiping. That's adaptation. Think how many times in your life you've been around people who just got a bad mood. And in time you just kind of give it up and let them have their bad mood. All right? What if you didn't? What if you said, that's your mood and you have a right to it, but in my life I only want positive energy. So unless you're willing to share positive energy, don't come around me. That's transcending a problem by declaring yourself, and that's honesty. It also puts you at risk. Oh, what are you too good for us? No, I'm not judging me against you. I'm saying that I have chosen to have a positive energy in my life. That's my choice, as your choice is to have something different. I'm not telling you not to have your choice. I'm just simply saying don't share it with me. I don't allow people to gossip around me. I don't allow hearsay. I don't allow innuendo. No. If I got something to say with someone, I'll call them and say it. But if I start compromising myself, then what have I done? I've mastered its opposite. So by mastering honesty, even when people are uncomfortable with it, at least I know that I'm not going to take a step back to where I don't want to be. It's very easy to adapt, and once you adapt, the energy of adaptation is not forgotten. Your whole body is energy. Every cell in your body, over 100 trillion cells, are working in perfect harmony. You didn't teach it any of those lessons. It knew it. What you teach is how to adapt to you, how to get fat and expand, how to maintain balance. That's perfection. Perfection exists because when you get fat, you're perfectly fat. You are. Well, think of it, all right? Is there any biological way, now here's a physician, medical doctor, is there any known scientific study or any scientific hypothesis that can explain why the body perfectly aligns fat starting at the point of gravity? None. There's no reason in the world that when you get fat, you can't have it all in your nose. Now, I think that'd be cool. You're 15 pounds, you get this bag that holds here. 30 pounds, you got a big bag. 80 pounds, man, you got to carry your nose around like this. And what if you got post-nasal drip? How messy that would be. Hopefully you didn't have a lot of hair in there. You got to go to a barbershop for that one. So, but think of that. You gain weight not just in the left hip or the right or just the front or back. You get it proportional because maintaining balance is essential. So the point of gravity is always maintained no matter how fat you are. Isn't that a miracle? That's a miracle. That is perfection. And you lose weight in the same way so you don't lose your balance. One little lesson to show you the perfection that exists within us. Well, you can't have that kind of perfection unless there was an innate knowledge. The chi, the primary chi, is your innate knowledge. It's there to defend you when you do something wrong. No matter what you do wrong, smoke, drink, eat sugar, vote Republican, no matter how bad your cells get, your cells are there to defend you and correct you. And yet you didn't teach it any of that. How does it know how to detoxify the liver? How does it know how quickly to put food through the stomach? If it's fish, it's digested at one level. If it's tofu, a different level. If it's brown rice, a different level. It knows. And how does it know how to turn off that so you don't eat a hole in your stomach? It knows. Because it's only mastered what is right for you. Uncompromising. Transcending everything you throw at it. Bacteria, viruses, alcohol destroying cell. The chi, the essential life force, continues to honor you 100%. When you don't honor you, 10%. You've never in your life honored you 100%. And yet it's doing it 24 hours a day, every day of your life. That's the wonder of that life. And that's why you should never take life for granted. Now, it couldn't honor you if it didn't have memory, because the repetition is the memory. And the energy is how that memory is carried. So anything that you have mastered that's a dysfunctional quality is also kept in your memory. So now you've got the problem of having two energies, one that you've mastered that's incorrect, and one that you have to transcend. The case is the lion in the zoo, where it was in 12-foot by 12-foot cage, pacing back and forth for years until they expanded its terrain to 5 acres, and they put it in there. It stayed 12-foot by 12-foot, and wore down the grass, would not go elsewhere because the conditioning. Think of how many exercises of your life are merely conditioned responses. You have to break that conditioning, and the only way you can break condition, you have to repetition. Mastery is repetition. Focus on what you want the outcome to be, and keep focusing and doing until one day you have mastered, and as you master one energy, the other energy is surrendered. You must overcompensate for one before the one that is overcompensated transcends and decompensates the other. That's how mastery is done. You can't do it thinking about it. You can't do talking about it. You have to do it. It's in the doing and staying neutral in the conditioned response to it. Otherwise, you're not going to eat things. If you don't think the taste is good, you're not going to go places. If you are prejudged against them, you're not going to talk with cultures or races or aged people. If you think your condition is don't hang with those people, don't socialize with them, don't even go there. Stay neutral. Then when you talk with someone of a different culture, different age, different gender, then let it be what it is. Then you hear everything when you stay silent. You feel everything when you have not prejudged it. There'll be things you don't like, in which case you can acknowledge after the experience you don't like it, and that's a lesson. There'll be things you like, and you'll acknowledge it afterwards. But don't stop your mastery, don't stop learning because of what you don't like. Do you realize how many things I've eaten in my life I didn't like but were good for me? I had to do it until I mastered the new taste. Two of my best friends were over the age of 85, Paul Swan, the Renaissance artist, and Dr. Emmanuel Ravisi, the great Renaissance scientist. Here I am, 22 years old, befriending two of these guys, and they were wonderful human beings. But what if, like my other buddies, what are you hanging out with those guys for? They're old. Well, you don't have their knowledge. So I want to be where their energy is. And they were willing to share it. Think of what we don't do. That's the conditioning. Now, how many areas of your life are you conditioned? And how many of those conditioned areas have you mastered? And therefore, you got to surrender what you've mastered, this condition that limits you, so you can be unlimited in what you go forward with. You can't do both. What have we mastered? Give yourself time and attention to focus upon all the things you've mastered and be honest about it. Have you mastered your fears? Because you use them, you've mastered them. Have you mastered your exit strategies? Have you mastered obstinates? Have you mastered arbitrary and capricious attitudes? Have you mastered petulance? A lot of people do. Well, if it's not my way, I'm leaving. Really? You've mastered that then, haven't you? Now, what are you going to get when it's, I'm leaving? How many times someone yelled at you and slammed up the phone? Huh? What's happened from that? They master it. How many people master not listening to what you're saying? Because they don't want to hear you're saying. They only want to convince you the rightness of their position. They master that. Think of all the areas of your life you've mastered, positive and negative, and then look at what you want, and that's what you have to focus on, because then you know where you have to master its opposite. Do we see all of our options? The conditioned self is always limited because it never sees how many things it can do, because our defense mechanism doesn't allow us to see our options. It pushes options away. So when you start pushing options away, you're not going to be able to find options that are going to work for you. You're going to be limited to the same old thing over and over again. Well, how in the world can you wake up tomorrow and it'd be a better world for you unless you surrendered the perception of what you should feel like and be like and how you're going to get there? You have to surrender something in order for something else to take its place. You can't keep taking the same mindset and the same limitations and the same fears and expect a different outcome. You have to look at your options. And sometimes other people will be a motivating force to show you, well, that person did it. If they can do it, you can do it. That's why we're frequently motivated by acts of courage or acts of social disobedience or acts of individual uniqueness. And then we realize, gee, why can't I do that? And the answer is you could. Look for inspiration in what other people have done before you. That's what makes Martin Luther King or Gandhi important, not their holidays. That's irrelevant. What they stood for is a person that did something that was a mirror for us to reflect upon us doing it. Where do you feel unworthy or deficient? How does this affect your trust? If you feel unworthy, you will also feel untrustworthy. And you'll also be not willing to trust other people. You're going to reflect upon someone else what you fear in yourself. So if you feel untrust, you're going to project untrust, in which case you won't have an authentic connection. Without an authentic connection of trust, you will not have the energy connect, and without energy connecting, you won't have a vibration. You'll have a desire, but not a vibration. And it's in the vibration of the chi that the connection occurs. In the Kundalini, you should be able to think and have an orgasm. So look at every place where you feel a lack of trust, and you'll see how that represents you. If we are perceived to be limited, such as boring, physically unattractive, insecure, then how do we compensate? By trying to overcompensate in some other area. Almost always when we're trying too hard in one area, it's to compensate for what we felt was deficient in another area. Well, then what have we done? We've played at a game of illusion. Look where people are compensating. It's almost always because they feel that they're going to be judged and will not be judged properly. But why should you care how you're judged? I've had 2,000 negative emails in 1 week from a group of people at Pacifica Write Hate Mail. I was shown these and I said, it's okay. What do you mean it's okay? It's okay. It has nothing to do with me. But they're about you. You don't understand. That has nothing to do with me. It has to do with them, not me. I don't hate me. I like me. It's about them. They have a right to their opinion. But do you realize that if they weren't hating me, they'd be hating someone else? Because at the end of the day, they hate themselves. Because someone they fear is judging them, and the more fearful you are of being judged is how quickly you would judge other people. Where are you fully accepted and secure? Generally with someone who accepts you as you are, or with family, or with pets, which is one of the reasons we love our cats and dogs. Because they don't care how old we are, how many warts we have, how our body smells. You know, if we have hair coming out of our nose or between our teeth, they're still going to love us. So we need to ask ourselves, are the people in our lives accepting us? And if they're not, why? Because we shouldn't be jumping through hoops to get acceptance. How much of our lives are creatively unproductive, and do we compensate? One day we wake up and we realize, my God, my life is boring. Well, your life can only be boring if you're boring. Well, if you're boring, it's because you've mastered being boring. Now, it takes a lot of work to be boring. It takes as much work to be boring as it does to be non-boring. Because to be boring, you have to accept that there are limitations. So you make fear, guilt, shame, and all these negative virtues and uncertainty, you make those the walls upon which you are touching. And then you make them real. And you say, well, I can't do anything else because I'm boring. And then you look outside of yourself of all the things that are more interesting than yourself, and then you start judging yourself and reacting accordingly. Low self-esteem. How do we compensate for feeling inadequate? We can never fully relax when we feel inadequate. When we feel at some level that we're not enough to be enough in the moment that we're at, then we constrict. Anxiety constricts. Fear constricts. And when you've constricted your energy, you've blocked your chi. When you've blocked the chi, you've blocked the connection that you need to have a vibration, an authentic and full connection with life, with people, with yourself. So what we have to do is we have to examine how we have mastered that block and then disengage it by doing its opposite. We are drawn to our opposite, our limited self, versus the universal transcendent being as compensation. Almost always when I hear people going to meditation retreat and spiritual retreats and following a guru, it's a game. It's an illusion. Why? Because we're looking at something that we think is so perfect that it's transcended our limitation. And we want to connect with someone who is transcendent. So we want someone that we're willing to overlook all their insufficiencies, all the contradictions, all their illusion. We want to live by the delusion that by believing in this transcendent being and energy, that we will be a better person. And hence we become true believers. And true believers are always going to be disconnected from their reality. We have to believe in ourselves and realize that we can transcend and we can be the illuminated being, but only when we master what it means to be that universal self. We feel disconnected from universal truths. We feel isolated. We feel alone. So we busy ourselves. We identify everything that's a sensitive point in our lives. We stay within our comfort zone. And there is our defense mechanism. We're smart enough to realize that as long as we master enough things that make us seem functional, social, even humanistic, of value, based upon someone else's scale of the human evolution, that we will have our part to play. But it's a superficial connection. It's not authentic, and it's certainly not complete. Identify these limitations, and then go through the process. Once you've identified what you don't want anymore, your fear, your imperfections, then start looking at how you can manifest through the disciplines of life, through compassion and sensitivity, and through focus, and through doing, and staying neutral in your mind. Stop connecting to the outcome of everything you do. When you stop connecting with the outcome of everything you do, then you're present for the moment you're in. And when you're present for the moment you're in, everything is possible. And then one day you wake up and you feel at ease. You feel full. You feel whole. You feel complete because you're one with yourself. At the end, we're always one, but we're living with a divided energy. The functional and dysfunctional, the honest and the deception. Which one are you honoring? If you're honoring your opposite, you're going to have conflict. Even if you have desire, you won't have the outcome you want. Thank you very much.